Thank you, David. It's good to see you.
Good to
Great
see
show
you.
there. Joining
Thank
us
you.
now, let's get right at it. Let's bring in National Border Patrol Council Vice President Art Del Cueto and Cochise County, Arizona Sheriff Mark Dannels. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Wow, when you saw, first to you, Art, you saw the president and former President Trump at the border in Texas today, Art. What was your first reaction? Trump is at the epicenter at Eagle Pass. Biden is in Brownsville. Not a lot of action there. This is his second visit in just the entire 50 years he's been in D.C. Art, your take on this?
Well, I mean, first off, President Trump is down there because he wants to be down there and he wants to see what is actually happening down there. President Biden went down there because he has to. It's the last Hail Mary pass to try to salvage what he's destroyed for the last 3 years. And that's what it comes down to. This administration from day one have caused this chaos at the border. They've destroyed it. And honestly, at the same time, I think President Trump would be sad when he showed up and he saw that all his hard work and everything that he did, all the effort he put into securing our nation's borders has completely been reversed in a very short time by this administration right now.
Yeah, so what Art just said, Sheriff, the former president is talking about crime. Biden is attacking Republicans, and President Biden is saying he's done all he can to secure the border. What do you say?
Well, as my friend Art said too, is we have President Trump, who's actually has prioritized our borders as president. He's put action behind it, and he's done an amazing job of securing our border, taking his oath of office serious. Opposite of that is President Biden, who's blamed everybody but himself for not securing this border. It's his administration that reversed all the Trump measures to open up this border and then blame everybody because it's not secured. Two different type of leaders. It's very simple when it looks at who actually has the will to secure the border and who does not.
Yeah, so let's listen to former President Trump. He spoke at the border in Eagle Pass today. Let's listen. Watch.
I call him Crooked Joe because he's crooked. He's a terrible president, the worst president our country's ever had, probably the most incompetent president we've ever had. But it's allowing thousands and thousands of people to come in from China, Iran, Yemen, the Congo, Syria, and a lot of other nations.
Yeah, Art, House Judiciary says more than 600,000 criminal illegal aliens convicted of felons in their home countries are now in the U.S. What do you think?
And they continue to come in. I'll be honest. Look, President Trump is going down there. He's seeing the chaos that's happening down there. And make no mistake, Biden could have gone down to San Diego, or he could have gone to Arizona, where the numbers are, astronomical lately. Tucson alone is looking at over 1,500 a day encounters. That's just encounters that they know of. That doesn't count the gotaways. It's been a complete mess, and not only because Biden erased the policies that were in place by President Trump. He did it with rhetoric alone. Day one of his administration, before he even pulled out the pen, you were already seeing, groups in the hundreds that were coming across in different areas. And it's people from over 160 different countries. And unless we know what criminal records, or we have some kind of knowledge of the criminal record in the States, all these other countries can be releasing their criminals without us even knowing about it.
Yeah, it is what Art just said. Sheriff, President Trump Biden, when he was campaigning, said, quote, yes, surge the border. He said that to illegal aliens overseas. The president's Justice Department sued Texas to stop its border barriers. President Biden did not reach out and invite border officials like Brandon Judd to his visit today. He did not acknowledge Texas's successful state crackdown on illegal border crossings. But Sheriff, I want you to listen and react to Speaker Johnson saying that President Biden told Speaker Johnson he's worried about Mexico for why he's not reinstating Trump's policies. Listen to this.
I told him, Mr. President, if you just issue an executive order that reinstates remain in Mexico, sir, the Border Patrol, the own Border Patrol, your agents told us it would reduce the flow by 70%, almost overnight. He won't do it, Sean. He told me that he didn't have the authority to do that. I said, that's just simply not true. President Trump did it. Why can't you do it? He said, oh, Mexico doesn't want that. Well, you're the president of the United States. You should act like it.
So that's what's going on behind the scenes. He's saying Mexico doesn't want it, but the president is publicly calling out Republicans for saying no to the Senate Ukraine aid bill. Sheriff, you know, there's so much misinformation out there. People don't understand why that Senate bill was bad, why law enforcement lawmakers did not want it. It would enshrine catch and release. It would still let in $1.8 million a year that the Obama White House designated crisis levels. Plus, it would have taken away states' rights to sue over bad policies. It would have only been able to sue in D.C. courts. What do you think?
Well, Liz, let me just say this. The bill was never shared with sheriffs, mayors, those working the communities. This is all about communities and their safety. Where President Biden has failed and where the majority of Congress has failed is they forget who they're serving. And that's the communities, us, and these communities down here. President Biden has done everything he can to make an excuse why this border cannot be secured. And he's put America second. When you worry more about Mexico than you do America, we're obviously going to lose every time. This president, you can't come 3 years later and say, okay, I'm going to go to the border and see what's going on today. Bottom line is, where has he been for 3 years? Look at the tragedies countries have suffered in 3 years. Americans, people dying at the hands of this president, this administration, and the majority of Congress that fails to do it right, and fulfill their oath of office.
Art Del Cueto, Sheriff Mark Dannels, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's great to have you gentlemen on. We really appreciate you so much.